Welcome to Book Action. Today I have the pleasure to have somebody that I really admire, and he's a great athlete and adventurer. I think everybody, not only when we are kids, we want to have all these kind of experiences. And it's Ian Adamson. And well, you're quite known, so I actually don't think I have to introduce you quite a lot. How are you doing now during this COVID crisis, Ian?
It's very busy, good and challenging.
Okay.
And excuse-moi, je ne parle français, so I'll speak in English if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect.
And we have obviously lots of challenges in events, but World OCR is leveraging these for virtual and dispersed events. So that's working out quite well so far.
Okay. Are you training out still, of course, a lot? And how does your normal day look like, especially with such a huge background of so many races, of so much success also, no? In all your experiences, I think you have 3 world records. Is it right?
Yes, that's correct. I don't work out as much as I would like. It's
Okay.
because I'm quite busy. But it's not too bad where we are because being outside is allowed, actually encouraged in California. They require physical distancing, but it allows us to be able to stay outside and ride bikes and run on trails. So that's good. Interestingly, I guess technically I have 3 world records, which are the Guinness World Records. That's the kayaking ones. I have another one in sport, which is an age group, which doesn't really count. I like to count it because I'm old, but that's a ninja world record from the Ninja World Champs last year.
And how does Ian Adamson workout normally looks like?
Oh,
I guess it's not like a half an hour training or something, no?
Oh, it is these days. It used to be very long. I used to work out probably anything from 4 to 8 hours a day when I was a professional athlete. But these days it's 30 minutes to an hour whenever I can. So between work.
Okay. And because you mentioned your age, how old are you, if we may ask?
This year, 56. Yeah,
Sorry?
coming up on 56.
50. Oh, you look so much younger.
Some days I feel young enough, but some days I feel my age.
Well, and you're also the president of the OCR Association. And well, we know also that you are, at least we have also read about it, that you try to, how do you say it in English, that this discipline is accepted also in the Olympics, no?
Yes, so I'm president of World OCR. That's the international governing body for obstacle disciplines and events. And our goal is to meet the requirements as specified by the International Olympic Committee to be recognized as an Olympic sport. It's sort of complicated, but we have to become a member of the Global Association of International Sports Federations, Sporting Federations, GAIS, which is based in Lausanne, Switzerland. The International Olympic Committee, the IOC, is a member of GAIS, and we are very close, we believe, to being accepted as a member. And that's a very big step because that sets us on the path to recognition as an Olympic sport. That's different from events, by the way. People get confused with what's an event and what's a sport. The International Olympic Committee they take applications for events and games. Games being like the Summer Olympics would be the biggest games that most people recognize. And there's many. I'm just going to change my camera. It looks like it's pointing down a little bit. So the part where we do, oh, there we go. We do have and have had medal events in games recognized by the International Olympic Committee. We had 6 medal events in the Southeast Asia Games, kind of like regional Olympics for the Southeast Asia countries.
And why do you think it should be recognized? Well, I would just to hear your opinion, but of course, I know it. But...
The Olympics is a movement. Most people don't appreciate that. It's really to make better humans, to make it very simple. And Baron Pierre de Coubertin in 1896, who founded the modern Olympics, was not quite sure what it would look like. He wanted to avoid human conflict and find a way for people to be nice to each other, which is really what it's all about. And so we're doing the same thing. And the International Olympic Committee has basic criteria for what is sport. So there's many structural things, but the bottom line is it has to be something that people like to do and like to watch, and makes people better. And I think obstacle sports do that. We believe strongly that obstacle course racing and ninja competitions and parkour and free running are all these kind of obstacle type events and disciplines are what people like to do, and they make people better people.
So actually, one of these discipline or categories would be for politicians, because they always fight. People responsible for the wars, etc. So you could. I don't want to mention some names, but I guess you get what I mean.
I do. I know exactly what you mean. I think you're right. It would be good
put them together.
If people could collaborate and be nice to each other. That would be very nice.
Exactly. Actually, I remember when I was 10 years ago in Olympia in Peloponnese in Athens, and I really could. Why shouldn't we integrate it? No. So if we go back to your history, because you said for you it is important also peaceful society, etc. What does sports mean to you, and how did it started with you? I read a little bit about it, but maybe you could tell us more how you go from being a child, a boy that starts with a bicycle, I think, with bike, and then to do these extreme things for many of us. How was it?
Well, I always had the Olympic dream. I had two things. I used to look at the Guinness Book of World Records when I was a kid. I used to read the records, and I thought very, very early on that I wanted to have a world record, and I had no idea what that would be. I was a cyclist because my dad was a cyclist. He was quite a good age group cyclist. I think he was like top 3 in the country, as a probably 40s kind of masters road cyclist. So I liked to ride my bike, and I competed from a very young age for about 10 years in road cycling. And then I also played football. My grandfather was the president of the Australian Soccer Football Federation. So he was a national federation president, and he played for Scotland. So he'd moved to Australia when he was very young. Then I'd always been surrounded by sport, and I didn't really know what it meant as a kid. But because of that, I played football as well from about 6 years old, and then went through up to second division in Australia, which in Australian context is quite good. I wasn't a great player, but I liked it. I was a coach and a referee, and did all the sport functions in football because my grandfather did that, and I liked it. But I kept looking for sports. I loved to do anything, and it went from cycling. I did track and field at high school, kind of state level, nothing great. Swimming, water polo, volleyball, lots of stuff, and eventually canoe and kayak at university level, where I actually made a national team. So that was where I got quite interested in Olympic sport, because I was good enough to make the team, but not good enough to make a games. It's much more restrictive. There's only a couple of people make a games for any event, and on a national team, there's a lot more. So that was kind of how it started. But I never really excelled enough to get to the games, and I was looking at lots of sports. Took canoe and kayak quite seriously, and sailing. I actually got a bronze medal at a World Cup in sailing, strangely. I like to sail too. So I tried lots of stuff, but adventure racing is where I ended up, and that's because there's a lot of sports and events in it, and it's very long. So eventually, if you go long enough and you have enough sports, there's less and less people can do it. And I just happen to be able to do many things at a good level, not a great level necessarily, but a good level, but good enough that when you put it all together, I had some quite good success. Kind of like you see some people, they're good runners, but they add, say, swimming because they can swim. So they become two athletes. And then they add a third, that's cycling, they become a triathlete, and they add a fourth, and they become a quadrathlete, and they just keep adding stuff. It's kind of like that. So,
that's good, interdisciplinarity.
Yeah.
So because you say you exaggerated a little bit, that means, for example, the 268 miles, was it miles, kayak?
Yeah, 262. I think it's 415 kilometers in 24 hours. And that was a record that I worked at that record from 1997. Well, actually, it was earlier than that. I started really looking in 1989. And I was doing quite well at ultra distance kayaking. So by 1997, I did a solid attempt at the Guinness record, which went from 189 miles. I took it up to 203. My goal was 200. I thought that was a good number. And but having done it, I realized it actually wasn't that good. So I thought, oh, I should try it again. So I kept looking for a good location to do it, and finally settled on Canada in the Yukon Territory, the Yukon River. I tried a couple of rivers up there. I tried the Teslin and the Yukon, and that was a several-year work in progress. Eventually figured out that the Yukon at a certain time of the year was quite good. So that's where I did a record, or a couple of records, one of which I thought was good enough, and that was 262 miles. There's actually a reason I did that, and it was a mistake.
Really?
There's a very old race in Texas. It started in 1962. It's called the Texas Water Safari, and it's 262 miles. No one has ever done that race solo in 24 hours. And they all say, the Texans quite rightly say it may be impossible to do that. So I figured, sure, if they say it's impossible, then that's my goal. So 262 miles for the goal. Retrospectively, I learned a few things over the years that I believe it's possible to go 300. Not me, I'm way too old now, but in my day, I'm certain I could have gone 300 miles at a slightly better time of year, same river, good conditions. But there's a lot of things that come into it. The wind, the weather, the heat, or the lack of heat, the snowpack. I mean, there's so many things that come into these records that it really takes years to figure it out. And I spent about 8 solid years working on it.
Well, that means every day. And how does it? What goes in your mind when you are like doing the half and then still the half is missing, and you look at the watch and, oh shit, I have to go faster, and tired, and all the mind issue comes up?
Well, interestingly, the 2004 record, which was 262 miles, was I was sort of training for it specifically, sort of, but not really, because I was doing adventure racing as a professional. So my training anyway was long, and 24 hours actually was quite short for me at the time. So going 24 hours was not a problem. Sitting in a kayak for 24 hours wasn't a problem for me. And just in my regular training, I was doing long stuff and a lot in boats anyway. So it was not exactly a specific thing for me. It was just, I was fit, I was good for the distance, and I felt like I could break the record or set a good record. So I did. If I'd been very specific, like I dropped the cycling and the running and the other thing, climbing and the other stuff I was doing, that's one reason I think I could have gone 300, which would be, what is that in kilometers?
It's more. It's
500,
like
yeah.
500.
About 500 kilometers.
Incredible.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's possible.
Quite a lot. Okay. It means, for example, I'm here in Innsbruck in Austria. That means it's like from here to, I think, like to Budapest in Hungary.
That sounds about right. Yes, it's quite a long way.
Quite a lot, yeah. Wow. Okay. You mentioned it already before, your father, your grandfather. So I think it was like a socializations thing that you had, like parents that were a lot into sports, into football or soccer, and in cycling. what do you think about the youth of today, especially the youth? Because we have a lot of obesity, a lot of people that prefer Netflix to doing sports. Why should I do sports if I can have my chips or crisps and lie in the couch? What would you suggest to them, especially if the parents are not doing sports? Because I think, as like in your example, to be an example is always something good, no?
Yeah, it's a big challenge in a lot of countries today. This is part of
Especially in the
the
US.
yes, especially in the US, very big problem. It's one reason that Pierre de Coubertin's idea to make better humans is a good one, and what the Olympic movement is about. Also answering your question somewhat about why we feel that being an Olympic sport is important. I didn't really answer the question in terms of what it does for the sport, but addressing youth is one of them. So addressing obesity problems in industrialized countries is important, and having a big platform where lots of people watch it to show people what they can do is one way to do it. And the Olympic Games, the Summer Olympics, is the most watched thing on earth by a wide margin. I think they're saying by Tokyo, assuming it happens, it'll be 6 billion people will be watching the games, and nothing else compares. Even the World Cup, Football World Cup, has a couple of billion, so that's a huge number, but it's not 6 billion. Having that platform to inspire people is good. And our goal is to have something that people see and they like, and then they're inspired to get off the couch. But that's only part of it, because that inspiration only lasts so long. So we want to create an aspiration as well, meaning we want to create something that people believe they can do. That would be the aspirational part. They can aspire to doing something. And we inspire them. They then have the aspiration to do something fun. And then ultimately we want them to perspire. So we want them to get out there and sweat. And if we can do all of that, then we've achieved our job of motivating youth, which is a sport function, by the way. It's called development. One of the development functions of sport is to develop young people to become healthier adults.
That sounds great. What about the nutrition? How is your nutrition? Because it's such an important element that I know I'm talking maybe for you, it sounds maybe like confused because I'm mentioning sports, nutrition, etc. But I would like to also to know your perspective on nutrition, because especially if you have done so many different disciplines, from being football, soccer, that I actually also wanted to ask you, which position did you play? And did the other teammates call you son of Adam? Because it's like how you call it, like a Scandinavian name, no? Like this Adamson.
Yes, it
like
is.
A Viking, or
that is right. That is exactly right. So my family name, I understand from my Danish colleagues, is actually a Danish name. My grandparents, actually my great-grandparents moved to Australia from Scandinavia, and they weren't quite sure where from, but according to the Danish, Adamson is a Danish name. That's as far as I know, but somewhere in Scandinavia, so that is correct. And you asked about I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question, since I answered the last part?
No problem. One was the position playing football, and the other one was the nutrition thing.
Oh, yes. So my grandfather played left fullback in soccer, and I played center fullback. I was usually captain, so I would be captaining from center fullback.
So you were shouting to the other, come on.
I did a lot of yelling.
Okay. And what about the nutrition? And how do you still do it today?
Yeah, nutrition is part of development. It's important to educate people on healthy nutrition. I think number one for most people is health. Health really these days for many countries like the US means understanding the nutritional value of food, and what's healthy and what's not healthy and what causes problems. Fortunately, I have a background in sports medicine and biomedical engineering. So I was a professional for about 10 years when I actually did a real job. And that led into education for physicians. So also when I was director of education and medical at Newton Running Company, we trained physicians on running injury prevention and other things, but it included nutrition. And one of the things that is quite solid in the science is that carbohydrate in diet is tolerable by humans, but it's inessential. Carbohydrate has no nutritional value. The things that carbohydrate comes in can, like an orange has carbohydrate and it has beneficial things in the orange, but the carbohydrate itself is inessential, meaning if you cut carbohydrate out of your diet, you generally get healthier. If you cut fat out of your diet, you'll die. If you cut protein out of your diet, you'll die. If you cut out the nutrients, you will die. But if you cut out carbohydrate, it's empty. There's nothing in it. It just makes you fat. So it's delicious. Does it help humans survive in past times? So the number one thing, and the challenge for a lot of people, is that they get bombarded by advertising from so-called sport nutrition companies and basically selling them addictive substances. And the most addictive known substance to humans, more addictive than cocaine, heroin, all of these other drugs, is sugar, which is carbohydrate, no matter how it comes, whether it's in pasta or bread or all these other things that are delicious. It's still carbohydrate, and it is incredibly addictive to humans. So this is the problem that we're facing. Athletics and athletic pursuits help with this problem because one, people are doing more physical output, and two, they tend to focus more on what they're eating. That's really the key, is understanding what they need, and two, understanding what it does to you. So there's the media and the companies selling food generally say you have to have carbohydrate and lots of it, just work out and it'll go away. And that's complete rubbish. The mathematics does not add up, and it's very easy to understand if you understand how easy it is to eat a lot of calories. You can consume, most people can consume 8,000 calories a day is possible to eat. You can consume 4,000 easily in a day. If you have 4,000 calories of carbohydrate, it takes about 50 miles of running to take that off. So when people say just eat more and work out more, it doesn't really work, because I don't know many people will run 50 miles a day.
Yeah, not really. So for example, I think it's 1 o'clock or 12 noon. It's in California, no?
11 a.m.
Okay, so what are you going to eat for lunch? That would be interesting.
Well, I haven't had breakfast yet, because I usually eat my breakfast. I do habitually from years of training, decades of training. I would usually work out in the morning and then have something to eat. So I had coffee this morning, which is normal for me. And then coffee, by the way, or caffeine, is an ergogenic aid. It has a physiological effect for endurance trained humans. So people who work out, and there's a long way to say it, but basically it helps your body, assists your body in using your stored fat as energy. It's called mobilization of free fatty acids. So if you drink caffeine, tea or coffee in the morning with no food, you're burning, you have plenty of energy because you're just burning your own fat. And that's really the goal. And this is called, what I'm doing has become kind of common now, which is called intermittent fasting. It's not really intermittent. It's really, I call it routine fasting. It's just, I would eat, let's say eat at 6 p.m. and then I eat again at 12 p.m. So that would be 18 hours without eating anything. And it's very comfortable once you get used to it. But what it does is it helps keep you lean without, stops you getting fat. It's a big way to stop you getting fat. And then to answer your question, what I like to eat, something like an omelet as my first meal.
There's protein because of the egg. And what?
Yes, protein because of the egg, exactly. Fat, so I'd put butter in it, and or cheese or something like that, and something green would be good. So a good first meal has helped, again, assist your body in recognizing the energy, as we call it, the energy pathway. So the way your body burns fuel it's through various biochemical mechanisms, one of which is utilizing stored fat for energy. And you can assist your body doing that with intermittent fasting and then eating fat and protein, and avoiding carbohydrate. I love my carbohydrates, by the way. I love to eat chocolate and ice cream, and I love it all. But that's because we're designed as humans to do that so that we can store fat for when there's no fruit and things available, which will be normally for a few months, maybe 2 or 3 months a year. In most climates, you have access to carbohydrate for a human with no industry and no agriculture. And then for the rest of the time, you have to eat something else. And generally, you fatten up when you have fruit, and then you lean out when you don't. That would be normal.
What was your exercise? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Exercise.
What was it today? Because you had your coffee and you had a lunch. And
my exercise today has been standing at my computer, trying to catch up on work.
Okay.
I tend to work rather a lot, but I like to ride a lot. Running is not so easy for me these days.
To ride a bicycle?
Bicycle, yes. I still love to ride bicycles.
I don't know, maybe you have a horse or something.
My wife was a UCI world champion. She won the uphill mountain bike race in the 1994 cycling world champs. So she's a very, very good rider, loves to go uphill very fast. So I try and keep up with her.
Wow. Impressive. So quite a lot of activities. You have also, besides the sports thing, you also talk. You have given a lot of interviews, but you have also quite a lot of experience in the corporate sector. I also saw it on your homepage.
Yes, I did a lot of overlap. So I started as a biomedical engineer in heart pacemakers. I started as actually in research and development, then went into design engineering and then project management over a period of about 10 years. The last few years, I was a contractor to the company I had been employed with, and that was so I could try and become an athlete. That was my
in Australia, no?
Well, it started in Australia. I moved to the US in 1991. It was temporary, or it was going to be a temporary move to help move factories out from Australia to the US. At that time, part of the attraction was the company was based in Denver, Colorado. So it was close to Boulder, where I knew a lot of my previous athlete colleagues had or did live and train. And so I thought, maybe I can become an athlete too. So I did. And then spent from about 1997, where I became quite serious training, through 2007.
Which age were you in 1997?
In 97, I would have been 33.
Okay. Oh, the age of Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, it's quite old. I got started late.
Okay.
And then, so I was full-time and professional, meaning I could actually make a good living for about 12 years as an athlete. But I was an overlap thing. I didn't think I'd last very long because most athletes don't have a very long career. So in 98, when I started, I stopped all other work in 98. I thought, this is a bad idea. Maybe I won't have a job in a few years. So I had an exit strategy that by 2000, I would be able to do something else. And I thought at that point, it would be event production and television production. So by 2000, that was what I was doing. But I was also racing, and it turns out I kept racing for another few years, quite a lot of years. So I was racing, producing, and directing events all together. And so that then led to working in the shoe industry, because I was sponsored by Salomon originally from about 97 through 2001, a little bit overlapping with Nike, and then stayed with Nike till the end of my career. And that involved shoe design with the shoe groups, so helping, assisting with advice on shoes, which was partly my background anyway as a design engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a job at Newton Running Company. I was the 8th employee at Newton Running Company, which was a shoe manufacturing company out of Boulder, Colorado, and worked there for 7 years. So I headed up product development and medical and education at Newton Running Company. And so I kind of had that big overlap into shoe manufacturing and that whole world, which was super fun. But then got back into event production, owned a company that put on 24 hours of triathlon. That's still going. That started in 2006, and that event is still going. That kind of got me back into the sport world a little bit. And then Joe DeSena got me into OCR. So I produced Joe DeSena's first event in 2001, which was an adventure race in the British Virgin Islands. And we had competed against each other in the 1990s. And Joe DeSena is the founder and owner of Spartan Race. So
yeah, I know.
we'd remained friends. And
I've done several Spartans.
Oh, very good.
Also now
yeah,
the
virtual
one, the 24 hours, like 1 month ago or something. Yeah.
Oh, you did that one?
Yeah,
wow.
The dead race and the ultra, and so it was like, you know it, of course, no, the sprint, the super, the beast, then it was the something with the bike, I don't remember, then it was the dead race, hurricane heat, and then the something else, yeah, was quite good.
Oh yeah, Joe kept sending me messages.
I was kicked out we were over 1,000 people, but I remained on the top 40. But I don't know why because you were in front of the Zoom and then they said, this is not correct or something, and they had to eliminate people. No? So.
Oh.
Yeah, it was very nice, very interesting.
Oh, good. Wow. So you like to go long?
Yeah, I like. I was actually preparing now for I don't know if you know it, the Transalpine Ultra. It's Germany, Austria, South Tyrol, Italy.
I do.
260 kilometers in 1 week. But then I got sick with the COVID 2 months ago.
Oh.
Now I'm fine, but I'm starting again because I really noticed that I lost a lot, no? Because you're lying like 5-6 weeks without doing nothing. You lost a lot of condition and muscle.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's hard. We did a race we did an adventure race world championships a couple of times in Europe. One of them was 2001. We went across basically from St. to Zermatt.
Switzerland.
Yeah, it was really fun. And then we did another one in 2004. It was the Ray World Champs, and we started down near the Salomon headquarters, which is France. So we went through France and Switzerland and into Italy, I believe, and back into France. Didn't quite get up to Austria. I've never actually raced in Austria, strangely. I don't know why.
There are Spartan races, for example, huh?
I think they have a very big Spartan race in Austria.
Yeah, actually coming soon.
Coming soon, is it Oberndorf?
One in January, right? I think. Oberndorf, yeah.
Oberndorf, yeah, I heard it's really very good.
Yeah, you should come.
I would love to. And we can
then
travel
we can
again.
Compete.
Yes.
I'm much younger, but...
Well, I'm not very competitive. I go slowly, but I don't stop.
Yeah. I had so many questions. I just got out of the... something else you want to tell us? Do you like reading, for example? Does Ian Adamson read or not?
Reading, I love to read. I just don't have much time. I tend to read a lot of emails, unfortunately. I love to read books. I read a book called Sapiens recently, and there's another book.
Yuval Noah Harari.
Yeah. Yes. So the second one, I'm reading a second book very slowly because I get maybe a paragraph in and then fall asleep at night. So I really like his books. I find a fascinating comment on humans and how we do things and why we do things. So that's what I'm currently reading, apart from my work.
Well, now I'm connecting with what I forgot. You should give, I think, workshops in time management or something, because how do you manage with all these athletic experiences, also your professional background that you mentioned and all these experiences, to combine them. And one disadvantage is now that you have to read emails and not literature or good books, etc. No, but it's incredible, no, how you have managed through all your life, I guess, or through at least the last 20, 30 years to do all this, no, because I, for example, I think I also get a lot of things done, but not compared to you. And many persons to ask me already, do you have like 3 or 4 lives, or how do you do it? No, it's
Maybe.
fair question.
It's a good
How
question.
do you do it? Also the energy, to have the energy, no, and the drive.
Yeah, it can be challenging. I think I'm pretty driven. Like the world record thing, it was I thought about it for probably 10 years and then worked at it for almost 10 years. So that takes endurance. So that'd be the endurance part.
What does it mean? Sorry, before you continue, what does it mean? I worked 10 years on it. It was like I had the idea, I want to do this world record, and then you made a plan. For example, every day I trained this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
And really for 10 years, wow.
Yeah, it started reading the Guinness Book of World Records. There was the 24-hour distance record stood for about 10 years. It was set in Europe on the Vistula River, and it was 189 miles. And people at the time regarded it as an unassailable record. They said, no one will ever break that record. It's too good. And I looked at it and went, I think I can do that. So I started thinking about it probably in about 1984 when I started getting serious kayaking. And then in 1997, so it wasn't until 97 that I felt I could really, about 96, I felt I could really do it. So it was about 10 years of thinking about it. And then another few years to actually do it. So from 84 to 94, and then 3 years, and then 97 broke the record, set the record, the next one. And then I realized that there was a lot more that could be done. So then there was another 7 years working on the better record. So ultimately it was about 17 years of work to do it, maybe a bit longer, including the thinking part, which is most of it. You've got to think a lot about these things. And the same with anything else I'm doing. It's in cycles, overlapping cycles of 5 to 10 years, typically about 10-year projects. And so as an engineer, I worked 10 years approximately in the engineering field. That overlapped at the end with becoming an athlete, and that overlapped with becoming an event and TV producer, and that overlapped with the next thing. So it kept going like that. I'm still doing it. So although I'm on year 6 or 7, working on the sport of OCR to become approved by the International Olympic Committee, I believe that we will have done it, or I think we will have achieved our first goals within 10 years, and then medal events at the Summer Games, which is a very long-term goal for the sport, maybe by 28, if everything comes together, as in 2028, that with Los Angeles. So that project is, that's another 10-year cycle. But I'm already doing another one. I'm working on another cycle, which is I do expert witness work for law firms. So advise law firms on strategy to approach their legal cases, and that's mostly around sports. So actually, I've been doing that now since the end of last year. That's a lot to do with income, because running a sport for the first 10 years, there's no income, certainly none yet, which means I've been funding it, and that's a painful exercise. So financially painful. So that's why the overlapping thing, and the time management. It's not for everyone. My wife and I are both in startups effectively, and there's never a day off. I think I've worked every day without a day off. When I've actually worked every day at some point since August 2018, I haven't actually had a day off, like a full day off, and not many people can do that. I don't mind it. I prefer to have days off, like actual days off, and I think I will coming up fairly soon.
What did you say? You prefer to not have day off?
Well, I'm always thinking about stuff. And the pressure of work is relentless because the world never stops, right? In every time zone, at any given time during the day, there's always people working in time zones around the world. We have 100 countries in OCR active that we know of. Mm-hmm. And very quickly, we're going to go to about 150. That covers every time zone in the world. So there's always someone awake working. So when I get up early in the morning, if I get up early in the morning, Europe will be awake and working. And then the evening, Asia will be awake and working. And so the day never ends, which means if I'm, it's quite not uncommon for me to be working from 6 or 7 a.m. through to 10 p.m. That'd be quite common. So that'd be a 16-hour day. And not many people do that. Not every day. I'd like to have half days or less on a weekend. So that would be 8 hours or less working. But for most people, that's a full day. But there's plenty of hours in a day. You have 16 waking hours. So if you only work 8, that's half a day.
So you sleep 8 hours?
I like to, but probably don't. But yeah, that's the goal.
Would be healthy, no? Yeah.
That's healthy. Yeah, it's very important. There's a book everyone should read if they want to know about health and longevity and sleep. It's called Why We Sleep by, I don't remember his name. It's an English gentleman, but Why We Sleep, very important book. Tells you a lot about living. You're keeping your brain healthy.
Nice. Yes. So you take like this mindset in sports also for your life in general, no? Because you say, if I would be working from 2018 till now without day off, many people would, oh, I can do it. No, it's like like resistance, like persistence. And also, I think you have to have a sense of why you are doing it, no? And what's this, not only now, but also when you were young, that you had, I want to do this, because you mentioned it with the world record. I want to do this. This gives me, this fulfills me. This is my why. And that's why I'm going to do it. And you can even persist 10 years from 2018 to 2020, for example, or even the 200 something with the kayak, no? Because I think you are like really an endurance athlete, no? So also in your life, apparently.
That would be accurate. Yeah, that was nicely put. The goal is, understanding the goal is really important. So in obstacle, as an example, I think a lot of people would say the goal is to achieve medal events at the Summer Games, Summer Olympics. I'd say that's actually wrong. That's what people tend to see. The goal is to inspire the most number of people to a better life. That would be my goal, because that I believe is feasible. If we can get in front of enough people, I don't know if you know the expression shifting the needle, kind of move the needle a little bit. So cause mass change, cause a change in behavior for more people, for a lot of people, to have them have better lives, and that would be healthier, healthier and fitter. And I think obstacle does that. There's a very important reason I believe this to be true, and it's the fact that humans intrinsically want to play. They don't want to work. Like, going to work out just implies that it's hard. It's work. People like to play, and playing is fairly easy because if you're playing, you just don't really appreciate that it's work. You're just playing. The reason obstacle is so good is because it is playing. It's playing on a children's playground, like in the kindergarten when you have the little swings and the stuff to play on. When kids have a break, they go out and they play, and adults do the same. They just don't admit that they're playing. So adults on an obstacle course are playing like kids. It just gives them the excuse to do what they really want to do, but they wouldn't do normally. Adults would rarely go out to, almost never go and play in a kid's playground unless they're with their kids. But an obstacle event of any sort is playing. It's the adults playing. And for those people, you probably had this experience yourself. When you did your first obstacle race, you probably thought, well, that was really fun, but you didn't really know why.
Yeah, that's true. I will try to put it also on my work and my workout, this attitude, because it's true. Yeah, we always like to play. And if we linguistically say, I'm going to work already, you feel like, oh, it's heavy. Why should I do it now, etc. No, if you're not so fixed, like in your mindset, I know it, no, that yeah, you prefer to do something else, no, or you do it with the wrong attitude, no, and this is such important. No?
One reason people's compliance to an exercise program is so low, I think, is because you'll hear them say, "I have to go and work out now." They don't look very happy about it. Like, I have to work out. But no one ever says, "I have to go and play." They go, "I'm going to go play." Right? I'm going to go and do it. I get to do it. I want to do it. They don't go, "Oh God, I have to go and play now." It sounds horrible.
That's true. That's true. The last question about your goals, because we mentioned it already. So you have like a time or like a certain routine for yourself where you ask yourself, what do I want to do in the next 10 years? And you fix these goals, you take these decisions, and do you know also the feeling, the moment of doubting, of asking yourself, can I do it? What if I don't reach it, etc., or not? In general, and also, of course, what we talk about.
Yeah, I rarely have those doubting moments. For sure, they happen. Sometimes it gets kind of overwhelming. But on the other hand, the goal is so long and so big that the goal is so big that it's always out there, and it's a moving target. It doesn't stay stationary. I think that's one of the keys, is understanding that it's good to have a goal and you need a map to get there, but that goal is probably shifting constantly. Like COVID had a huge effect on global sport, and for us, actually quite positive, sadly, because there's terrible things about it. But if you look on the opportunity side, there's often opportunity in hardship. And this is one of those cases where World OCR, as I was working on putting the structure and systems for the sport itself in place over the past 5 or 6 years, I always had in mind that it would be more of a virtual, online, connected, distributed, what I call distributed network, meaning people connect virtually. And this is partly because of how people in OCR tend to interact with each other, which is heavily involved in social media. Facebook engagement for OCR people is about 98%, meaning that's where they tend to interact, and that's online. So I thought early on that this would be the future of sport, not knowing what would happen in 2020, where it forced the issue. And I see things in the Olympic news, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, says, we had our first meeting on Zoom and it's a really big deal, which it is. But we've been doing it since 2015 on Zoom. We have our annual meetings on Zoom and always have. And now it's becoming common. So same with virtual competition. We launched the first virtual World Series for any sport in the world. I'd been thinking about this for years because I knew it was going to happen in some form, or wanted to do it at least. And then this year, everyone's getting on the bandwagon. So virtual races are becoming a really big thing now because this is really the only way to do it. And we'd already been working on this. Same with, we have this global broadcast system, which is also around distributed broadcasting and commentators. So commentators, we just did one last Friday, which was commentators on 4 continents, Johannesburg, Manila, London, New York, California, and they were live commentating an event from their homes. Same thing, right? It's being forced into the system because people are not meeting at events and broadcasting and doing the TV thing. So we'd already started this project a couple of years ago, and it just turns out that it all came together this year. So disappointing and unfortunate that we're doing it, but it's changed the world, the way the world sees and interacts with sport. And we were just fortunate to have already pre-thought it.
Totally. I think it's the future, no? This Zoom and actually I read today in the newspaper that in South Korea, there's a second wave of COVID, and probably in other countries it might get as well bad again. So yes.
Yes, that's true. The indicators in the United States, in many states and regions within the states, are they've never left the first wave, and it's accelerating. The numbers are staggering in some places in the United States. The worst in the world, actually. We're seeing numbers going in a horrible direction. So there's going to be some consequence to this that I don't think people really want to admit, but it's real. It's already happened in South America. Chile, as an example, terrible problems in Chile. And
in Brazil or Mexico also.
Oh yes, yeah. And South America's got some big problems because they don't have they've got economies that rely on different things. They can't shelter in place for many people. There's nowhere to do it, and economically, it's cheap to eat, just to eat and get water in many countries, which people in Western countries don't really appreciate. But it's a big deal for a lot of countries. When you get to travel enough, you see these things where just getting water is hard. The people lining up at the single water outlet that's open for an hour, and if you're doing that, that's survival. The shelter in place is not going to happen in those countries, and doesn't. So you see the consequences.
Last message you want to tell us, or something else?
On a positive note,
the mic is yours.
Right. Well, thanks so much for the interview. It's been fascinating. I'd love to come to Austria. I haven't been there for many years now. I used to teach out there for running stuff, but beautiful country. Yes, Newton Running Company. I had set up a global training program for running and physicians, and I actually came out to Austria a couple of times and taught, which was wonderful. Beautiful country, absolutely gorgeous. So I would love to come out and participate with you in some sort of event.
Yes, you should, and then you tell us when you come and we have a run here.
That sounds wonderful. And I apologize. I launched into my terrible French early, so I should probably wrap up in German. Is that correct?
Sprichst du Deutsch auch?
Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch.
Warum sprichst du Deutsch? Aussi français?
No, Französisch ein bisschen.
Okay. Wow.
English is really the only language I speak properly.
My English is not as perfect as yours, of course.
Very good, though. Excellent.
We could talk next time in German, Spanish, English, Italian, French, if you like.
Spanish. My wife speaks very good Spanish.
¿Hablas español también? ¿Hablas español?
Mi español es no bueno, but I understand more.
Wow, good. Well, yes, so it was great to hear you also that you are interested in languages. I am also. So we can communicate next time in another one. We can choose.
We can mix it up for sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Ian. It was a pleasure. And yes, great things you do. And I hope we can help by also with this interview to get it better known, your courses also. And if you come to Austria, mi casa es tu casa.
Well, muchas gracias.
Vale, un placer. Saludos hasta California. Alles Gute nach Kalifornien auf Deutsch.
Okay, perfect. Well, when you come out here, that would be great. And I look forward to seeing you in person very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.